Corn is the backbone of North America, connecting the United States, Mexico, and Canada in ways that go far beyond the dinner table. In Mexico, corn is the soul of the nation, central to its cuisine, culture, and history, with thousands of native varieties that are a source of pride and identity. For the U.S., corn is big business. American farmers produce massive amounts, much of it genetically modified to boost yields and resist pests. The U.S. is the world's top corn exporter, and Mexico is its biggest customer, buying billions of dollars worth each year. Canada, while a smaller player, grows both GM and non-GM corn, supplying its own needs and exporting to global markets. The United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, governs this vital trade, making corn a key part of a much larger economic puzzle. Any policy change in one country sends ripples through the others. For Mexico, protecting native corn is about heritage. For the U.S., it's about economic survival. For Canada, it's an opportunity. The story of corn in North America is one of shared history, economic ties, and sometimes clashing values. Now, new rules and old traditions are colliding, putting this relationship to the test. The stakes are high culture, livelihoods, and billions in trade hang in the balance. As the three nations navigate these challenges, the future of North American corn is anything but certain. The next chapter is being written right now. In early 2025, Mexico made a bold move, banning the planting of all genetically modified corn. President Claudia Sheinbaum's administration called it a defense of national identity and biocultural heritage. Mexico, the birthplace of corn, is home to countless native varieties, many cultivated by indigenous communities for generations. The feared GM corn could cross-pollinate with native strains, threatening irreplaceable genetic diversity. This isn't just about farming, it's about protecting tradition, culture, and the future of Mexican agriculture. The law passed with overwhelming support, reflecting a deep desire to keep Mexican fields free from GM contamination. The ban is clear. No GM corn seeds in Mexican soil, safeguarding ancient varieties and the communities that depend on them. But the move has unsettled trade partners and raised questions about the future of food and agriculture in North America. The world is watching as Mexico draws a line between modern technology and ancient tradition. This decision is more than policy. It's a statement about who controls the land and what kind of future Mexico wants to build. The ban has set the stage for a larger debate about food sovereignty and the role of science in agriculture. The conversation is just beginning. Mexico's GM corn ban is the latest twist in a long-running trade fight with the U.S. It began in 2023 when Mexico tried to ban GM corn for tortillas and phase it out for animal feed, a shock to U.S. exporters. Billions in U.S. corn exports were suddenly at risk, and the U.S. government pushed back hard. American officials argued there's no scientific evidence that GM corn is unsafe, and took the case to a USMCA dispute panel. In late 2024, the panel sided with the U.S., ruling that Mexico's restrictions weren't based on science and violated trade rules. Mexico repealed its import restrictions, and the U.S. declared victory. But Mexico wasn't done. Days later, it banned the planting of GM corn, protecting its fields, but not blocking imports for animal feed. The U.S. saw this as a new front in the dispute, keeping tensions high. The fight has shifted from imports to what's grown in Mexican soil, and neither side is backing down. For Mexico, it's about sovereignty and heritage. For the U.S., it's about market access and trade rules. The battle over corn is far from over. Each move triggers new uncertainty for farmers, exporters, and policymakers on both sides of the border. The corn conflict is now a symbol of deeper disagreements about science, tradition, and who gets to decide the future of food. As the dispute drags on, the stakes only grow. The next move could reshape North American agriculture for years to come. The world is watching. As U.S.-Mexico tensions rose, Canada saw an opening. With Mexico seeking alternatives to U.S. GM corn, Canadian farmers stepped up, offering both GM and non-GM varieties. Canada's identity preservation system lets it guarantee pure non-GM shipments, exactly what many Mexican buyers want. As uncertainty swirled, Mexican companies began sourcing more Canadian corn, especially for food products. Canada's share of Mexico's corn imports has grown, even as the U.S. remains the dominant supplier for animal feed. Canadian exporters have seized the moment, building new relationships and promoting their reliability. For Canada, it's a win: more exports, more income, and a stronger role in North America's food chain. The corn dispute has redrawn trade flows, giving Canada a bigger seat at the table. In a time of uncertainty, Canada has become a stable, flexible supplier. The shift is reshaping the continent's agricultural landscape. For U.S. corn farmers, the dispute with Mexico is more than politics. It's personal. Mexico is their top export market, worth billions each year. The threat of losing even part of that market has sent shockwaves through farm country. Farmers in Iowa, Illinois, and Nebraska suddenly face an uncertain future. Even after the USMCA panel ruled in their favor, Mexico's new planting ban keeps tensions alive. Farmers worry. Will Mexico restrict imports next? Should they plant less corn? Invest in new equipment? The unpredictability makes long-term planning nearly impossible. The dispute has exposed the risks of relying too heavily on one customer. If Mexico buys less, U.S. prices could fall, hurting family farms across the Midwest. The crisis is a wake-up call: diversify markets, secure stable trade, and don't take any customer for granted. U.S. farm groups are pressuring officials to enforce trade rules and keep markets open. For American farmers, the issue is simple. They grow a safe, high-quality crop and need access to the buyers who depend on it. The corn conflict is a stark reminder that global politics can hit home, fast. The stakes for rural America have never been higher. Mexico and the U.S. see the corn dispute through very different lenses. For Mexico, it's about sovereignty and protecting a sacred crop. The government insists it has the right to decide what grows on its land. The ban on GM corn planting is framed as a defense of biosecurity and cultural heritage. Mexican officials say GM corn for animal feed is still allowed, but they're cautious about what ends up in tortillas, the nation's staple food. They argue that even without definitive proof of harm, caution is justified when it comes to tradition and health. For the U.S., it's a trade issue. Officials say Mexico's actions violate the USMCA and aren't based on science. The U.S. points to decades of safe GM corn consumption worldwide and sees the ban as protectionism. After winning the dispute panel case, the U.S. expected full compliance, not a new ban. The U.S. vows to keep pushing for open markets and fair rules. At its core, the dispute is about more than corn. It's about who sets the rules for food, trade, and culture. Both sides are digging in, and compromise won't come easy. The outcome will shape the future of North American agriculture. The corn dispute comes as the USMCA faces a major review in 2026. All three countries are preparing for tough talks that will shape North American trade for years. The U.S. wants stronger enforcement and science-based standards to prevent future disputes. Mexico will fight to protect its right to regulate for culture and the environment, especially when it comes to native corn. Canada, now a bigger player in the corn market, will push for stability and open access. The renegotiation is a chance to fix what's broken, or let tensions fester. Success could strengthen the region. Failure could mean more instability and economic pain. The corn conflict is a test case for how the three nations handle their differences. The future of USMCA and North American agriculture hangs in the balance. The next round of talks will decide if cooperation or conflict wins the day.